The address. Yep.
Came on.
Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Otsego City Council meeting. Audra, can you have the record show? Tonight is Monday, September 23rd. Our city attorney, our city planner, our city engineers present, along with all council members and our assistant city administrator. Absent this evening is our city administrator. I will ask you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first item of business this evening is the open forum. This is the portion where residents can come to the podium, state your name and address, and limit comments to 5 minutes or less. Would anyone like to speak? Jeannie's walking right up.
Looks like you got a full house today. Jeannie Holland, Ray County Commissioner for District 3. Just want to say thanks to everybody. That Prairie Fest was amazing, as always. A special thanks to Connie. She worked really hard. And I know our public health group was super thrilled with how much work she put in. And they were really excited to be here. I don't know if you saw their booth, but they came out in force and that was really nice. And that will continue. It's really great when a commissioner pushes hard to see what I can come up with. And that was really nice. A lot of moms use the trailer for changing babies and just some baby time. And so yeah, super excited about that. It was really fun to sit with and visit with people from Otsego. The other thing is tomorrow we are going to approve our levy and it will be 5.7, which the average home rate, the average home in Wright County is $350,000. You guys probably drive that up a little bit. That will equate to about $14 to $15 a year per household at that rate. So of course, if it's over that, it will be a little more, but we're really excited about that because it was coming in at 8. COLA was 6.5. A lot of our expenses, as you know, is staff. So we did a lot of work. It was 2 hard months of making sure we drove that down to an acceptable level. So that's where we're at. So hopefully that helps your budget because that does impact my cities, and that is why I fought to keep that down. And then any other questions?
Any questions for Jeannie? How was DC?
Oh, yes. Yes, we just came back from the I-94 coalition, and it was the fly-in for the state of Minnesota. So a lot of MnDOT people there. I represented Otsego well, told them it would be really nice if we could ever get a neighbor exchange to help with a commercial industrial on your end of 94, this end. And so basically it was a thank you tour because the project is funded now from Albertville to Monticello. They were happy to hear thank yous and not more money because they were in a press time to get the budget passed. And so a lot of tired legislators out there, but they were really happy to see the Minnesota contingent. So yeah, we made some really good progress out there and they were really happy to see us, and definitely worth the exhausted time out there. So yeah, it was great. But
Thank you for representing us.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was fun. So,
All right. Any other questions for Jeannie? All right.
Great.
Thank you.
hey,
you.
thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Any other public comments?
Go ahead and talk with somebody else. So Charles Norris, I go by Chuck, so feel free to make fun of me, have a good question. So we're here for is just to laugh and learn more about this stuff. Who am I? Like I said, Chuck Norris. I live at 15399 76th Street Northeast. Not too far from here, not far from Otsego Elementary. Boulder Creek is the neighborhood I'm in. So I just want to talk about three things tonight. My experience with the fire department, job of firefighters, and safety in general. So I'll admit, I moved here, it was December of 2017. I had zero clue Otsego didn't have a fire department.
Charles, you got to speak to the
Yeah,
Yep,
council.
they can see
Somebody
you
can
on,
hear me as well too.
they can see you on the TV.
All right,
Yeah.
perfect. So I had no idea Otsego didn't have a fire department. Just assume that they did, no big deal. It would have been August of 2018. It was the first time I had actually called 911 when I was here. Called 911 at 7:41 p.m. 7:44 p.m. Sherburne County paged the Elk River Fire Department. I learned from the Elk River Fire Chief that the average dispatch time could be 1 to 3 minutes. So in this case, it was 3 minutes. It was on the longer end. So one of the challenges we face is obviously being three different counties when it comes to the three fire company or fire departments that service us. Depending on where you're at, you're either going to go to Sherburne County, Wright County, or Hennepin County. In my case, it's Sherburne County since it's Elk River. So 7:44 p.m. that call went out to, or that page went out from Sherburne County to Elk River. Again, it was dispatch time of 3 minutes from Sherburne County to the Elk River Fire Department. 7:53 p.m. So 9 minutes later, the first emergency vehicle, non-fire truck, arrived on the scene. I was a fire lieutenant from Elk River. I was able to learn, as I've argued with one of you before on Facebook here, that that does not qualify as a response. It's not how the fire industry evaluates the response time. It's not how cities evaluate it. It's not how the National Fire Association does. I believe it's the NFPA and NFIRS. I had one other one too. ISO is an organization that rates fire departments. And the same thing with them. They do not count one person just showing up to fire as a response. So the first official response came at 58. It was Elk River Fire Engine 1. So that would have been 14 minutes after dispatch. And it would have been 17 minutes after my 911 call. Then at 8 p.m. is when they entered the garage to suppress the fire. So it was 19 minutes after I called 911, 16 minutes after dispatch. So again, 19 minutes for the fire suppression to begin, 16 minutes after dispatch, 19 minutes after 911 call. At the time, again, this is 2018, so this is going back 6 years. That bothered my wife and I, that seemed like it took longer than it should have. I believe at the time, actually, the first person I reached out to was the mayor. She acknowledged that that was, something that was unfortunate for our situation, that was, at the time, something they were looking into. So what are fire standards when it comes to response times? NFPA 1720, NFIRS, OS type of things that people cite. It's 10 firefighters in 10 minutes with the ability to fight the fire within 80% of the time. NFIRS, it's the first arriving apparatus, and an apparatus is going to be a fire truck. It's going to be somebody that's got access to water. Again, and one of the things that I did 2 years, I've kind of gone back and forth with one of you, is start to research more of this. So last week I sent over 1,000 emails to different people within the fire industry, mainly fire chiefs across the Midwest. So far, I think I'm up to 31 responses. And the common theme is you cannot hold communities that support yours to those standards. Because at the end of the day, what they're doing is a favor for you, and their primary responsibility is to their own community. So you're always going to be subject to the additional distance they have to travel. And if it's a volunteer fire department, like it is in Elk River, getting the people to the fire department, getting them out on time across the river, across the train tracks, wherever it is they're coming from. So you can't necessarily hold them to that same standard. The example I used today, if you're a baseball player playing for the Twins and you're hitting 225, it's not criminal. Obviously, you'd love to have them hit 300, but at the end of the day, it's not criminal if somebody's underperforming. So as a city, we have to be able to decide, are we okay with the numbers that the other communities provide to us? Other thing for me too is, what else do firefighters do? EMS calls. I personally had to call 911 2 other times that I know of for sure. I've got a daughter that's got a very severe seizure disorder. So we've had to call 911.
Charles, that's your 5 minutes.
Okay.
We have a lot of other people that may need to
Yep.
speak.
Sorry, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Jacob Olson, 15572 78th Court, and also current candidate for mayor. You're going to hear a lot of people, I'm guessing, from both sides of the fence. You're going to hear people that are in favor of the fire station. I'm sure with the crowd that we have tonight, you're also going to hear people that are against the fire station. I think what's important is that we kind of peel the onion back and we actually listen to the people on why they're against the fire station. I think it's fair to say that nobody is actually against the fire station. I think what people are against is the way that we're going about building the fire station and some of the questions that aren't being answered. All right. This isn't about being pro-fire versus anti-fire. The way that we've gone about building a fire station, in my opinion, is very, very irresponsible. All right. It's like walking into a kindergarten class and saying, who wants a free pony? Just about every hand's going to go up in the air. If I turned around and I said, hey, who wants a fire station in the city? I'm guessing just about every hand would go up until you start talking about the negatives that come along with the fire station and how we are going to get that fire station. What's not being talked about is the price tag. Yes, it's been mentioned on the slides, the $22 million price tag, but we keep asking the council, how much is that going to cost? How much is it actually going to cost to run a fire station? Sure, we can do the math and figure out what it costs to pay back a bond, but to actually operate that fire station, between paying back the bond and actually operation, all the estimates that people have actually gone out and done themselves is between $4 and $7 million. How are we going to plan on paying back that? We still haven't gotten an answer on that. If you just levy taxes, we're looking at least a 45% tax increase to the residents of Otsego. We have overwhelming support, I keep hearing, but yet we spent $1 million to set up an EDA revenue bond that will take it off the ballot. Why? In 2018, we paid for an independent fire study, and yet we only reference back to the fire consultation that we paid for in 2021 that laid out the options of a fire station. I appreciate Mr. Norris coming up here and stating his opinions and how his personal needs for the fire station. I'm not discrediting that, but why are we discrediting a professional fire evaluation that said we do not need a fire station in this town until likely 2030, and that's if Elk River and Rogers do not build secondary stations, which they both have. And then my final question is, why did, going off of the fact that we obviously have no plan to pay for this fire station, became very evident in our August budget meeting, when we opted, or I should say you as a council opted to structure the bond in a way that it pays interest only in 2025. Not only do you have no plan to pay for a fire station, you're actually going to pay interest only on that fire station. You're going to put that fire station essentially on a credit card for an entire year, and then we'll look at it next year. Because if you guys had a plan, you would have either addressed it on the 2025 budget. And the only reason, if you had a plan, that you wouldn't address it on the 2025 budget is because you're concerned with getting reelected. So instead of sitting up here and complaining about all the problems with our city, I'm one of the candidates that actually has a plan to pay for it. I'm not going to kick the can down the road. I'm not going to levy our taxes and our residents. And I'm not going to run a campaign on how I'm going to cut spending and trim our budget, because quite frankly, there's nothing in our budget that we could trim to account for a $4 to $7 million tax increase to pay for a fire station. So with that being said, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Martha Carroll. You can call me Marty. I live at 8710 O'Brien Avenue Northeast. I moved to Otsego 43 plus years ago. I raised my only child here. She's since become an Otsego homeowner also. We love and are very engaged and involved in our community and our city. And the fire station thing has brought a lot of feelings of negativity that I'm so sad to see. And I don't know the answer. Hopefully you guys have information that I don't have. I only ask because I'm a senior citizen. I'm on a fixed income. And pretty much every day something takes a chunk out of that, you know. Latest one was homeowners insurance, and boy, are we paying for that now. So I'm only asking you to examine your consciences, and when you vote on this issue, to vote confidentially that you are picking the services at the right time, you are financing it in the right way, and that you are meeting the needs of all the citizens of this community that I love so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Nystrom, 9565 Park Avenue Northeast. I've been a resident for 36 years. Do we need a fire department? Yeah, eventually. Will one fire department take the place of 4? No way. We will have 2 fire departments in the future. Could be 2 years, 3 years. I don't know. All I know is 3 firefighters at one station is not going to be able to cover Otsego. And they can say all they want about these other firefighters from Albertville, whatever, taking over if we can't do it. Well, we'll see about that. And we don't know the cost versus the present system. It's like nobody wants to tell us what it's really going to cost. We need more commercial businesses here, not coffee shops, liquor stores, daycares, and preschools. We are not Maple Grove. They have 160 plus restaurants. They have a lot of tax base coming in. And I see the city-owned lots with tax incentives. We need these commercial businesses to pay taxes, not those warehouses on 101. They don't pay any tax. It's ridiculous. And why are we letting these housing developers push everybody around? Florida has impact fees. That means you build a house, you can pay anywhere from $15,000 to $40,000 for that house as an impact fee because they got to put roads in and all this other stuff. I think you guys are fiscally irresponsible, and there's no transparency. It seems like there's a lot of backroom deals going on without citizens' input, and we can't keep spending 16 million for parks, 20 plus million for fire departments. And I don't know, you said you're going to put this out for bids. I saw Kraus Anderson's name on that picture there. So what is it? Is Kraus Anderson going to do this, or are we putting it out for bids? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name's Chuck Hediger. I live at 9539 Parkington Avenue Northeast. My question for you is, you guys want to build this fire station. I was here at last week's meeting and saw a picture of the fire station. My God, does it look like a Taj Mahal? Why does it need to look like that? Why do we need acid etched brick for a fire station? It's a fire station. It doesn't need to look pretty. It needs to be functional. Next is the way you, council and mayor, are trying to push this through with the EDA is just downright wrong. So wrong that it's infuriated most of the residents here in Otsego. I guess we'll find out come election time who's left. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Joe Zeba, 15377 81st Court Northeast here in Otsego. I come tonight once again to speak in favor of the implementation of our city's fire department. I don't want to stand up here and reiterate everything I spoke of at the EDA meeting several weeks back, but still mind-boggling to me that we are a community torn apart by the need and want for better public safety. The ample amount of misinformation out there spearheaded by certain individuals is disappointing and frankly irresponsible. I've been very vocal on this subject, not only because I'm educated in this field, spending 23 years in the fire service, but because of the amount of very false information out there. This misinformation was abundant as I spoke to candidates and citizens at Prairie Fest this past Saturday. One mayoral candidate told me Albertville had no idea this was happening, which couldn't be further from the truth. They were part of the fire study and have been kept in the loop on progress throughout. Another resident said this was sprung on them and the community and no one knew that they were doing this. Again, incorrect. This is years in the making and there have been ample opportunities to learn about what is happening. One resident tracked me down after a conversation earlier in the day and thanked me for clearing the air on response times, what they mean and how they are tracked, as he felt misled on what he read on certain Facebook groups. See, that's the problem with groups like Concerned Citizens and the Bulletin Board. Everybody becomes an expert, and if you sound convincing enough, everyone will believe you. And then instead of doing your own research, they base their thoughts on the fear mongering that is happening on said platforms. Being uneducated in 2024 is a choice. Stop listening to so-called experts and seek facts for yourself. Research ISO and the impact and potentially lowering your homeowner's insurance. Stop listening to council members that argue with lawyers and try to discredit official NFIRS documents regarding response times. Take the time to truly understand what a staffed fire station is versus staffing on a fire department. There is a difference. No one is discrediting the work that Albertville, Elk River, and Rogers are doing, not in the least. But this community is growing and the need for this will only continue to grow. A town of nearly 25,000 people should not be without proper fire service within its own boundaries. Our surrounding cities are getting busier and busier, which means more costs for them, translating to more costs for us. I ask, at what point do we stop funneling money to other communities and invest in ourselves? Many of you continue to use the word taxes in many different forms, but the fact that we will send almost 1.4 million tax dollars out of our city in 2024 and a projected 1.7 by 2027 is what should concern you. Do the math over the last 10 years and then for the next 10. It adds up really quick. This project is inevitable. We need to stop kicking the can down the road at the expense of our taxpayers and invest in Otsego. Thank you.
Thank you.
Judy Seibert, 9721 Jandel Avenue Northeast, and I'm a member of the Public Safety Commission. The previous gentleman just said everything perfectly that I could have said, so ditto what he said.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, Dan Gates, 7503 LaSalle Avenue Northeast. Been here 4 years. Just invite everyone to take a look at the map of the city behind the die here, please. What do you notice? A whole lot of choke points for the cities that are responsible for our fire protection. For Elk River to get here, they have to cross the Mississippi. Rogers has to cross the Crow River. Albertville has to cross the Railroad 994. There's only so many places they can do that. It creates a lot of choke points. The other thing to consider, I've read how it's become so difficult for our traditional fire department model of paid on-call volunteers to continue to recruit and retain talent because it's become a much more complex job, a lot more training, a lot more continuing ed that's necessary for it, that people with full-time jobs find out harder to keep that up. And sorry about that. With the departments located where they are, there's a whole swath of Otsego residents that can't even apply to be firefighters for the area that's for the department that serves their area because they live too far from the fire station. So that's something else to consider, that it's really hard to retain and recruit. And there's a whole pool of applicants in there that can't even do it because they don't live close enough to a station. So, I mean, I support moving forward. I don't understand all the complexities of finance and all of that. It just needs to happen. Just trust in the council to pay for it in the right way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Nancy Anderson, 9031 Mason Avenue. What I don't understand is they talk about spending 1.2 to 1.7 million for our service. Are we going to be able to run that whole fire station for a little over $1 million to $2 million a year? I mean, to me, that doesn't make sense. The salaries, the upkeep, the whole thing. And the other thing I don't understand, on County Road 22, Oak Grove has this little fire station. It's got a couple bays for their fire trucks and stuff. It's a very modest building. Why did we have to go with some huge fancy building? Why couldn't we have started out with a little modest building like Oak Grove has and start from there? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Any other comments?
Gabe Davis, 6689 Packard Avenue Northeast. Last December, you guys tried to sell us a $32 million city hall plan that you said the whole city was behind and there's a majority wanted it. That wasn't true. They didn't want to spend 32 million for a city hall palace. This time around, the majority of the city wants a fire department. Last time I talked on Monday, I talked to 400 knocked on 400 residents' door running for city council. At that point, I had exactly 5 people that supported the fire station. One of them was moving out in the beginning of October, so we're down to 4. Another one of them was an 80-year-old woman who said, well, how much is this going to cost? And she did support the idea until she found out how much it was going to cost. So you're down to 3. This week, I knocked on another 50 doors. The last week, knocked on another 50 doors. I didn't find anybody that supported the fire station. What they're worried about is their property taxes. They feel safe with the service we've got now. The seniors are on fixed incomes, and they just laugh. The most common thing I'm hearing is, we need a new city council that knows how to run things and listen to the citizens. Fire station now, I think it's a bad idea, just like the city hall was. That was a bad idea at that time too. Eventually we may need it, but now is not the time. And there's no reason that we can't save $10-15 million for a nice down payment on a fire station so it doesn't hit the residents as hard as this is going to nail them. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Vincent Peterson. I'm candidate for mayor of Otsego. I live at 14064 67th Circle. I've done a lot of door knocking, talked to a lot of people. Very few of them say they're for the fire department. So tonight, I would like to say that I'm opposed to the spending of a new city hall. I'm opposed to spending for a new fire department, and I'm opposed to new park expansion, $16 million. The fact is that we have fire services. We could save that $20 million and fund what we have, bolster what we have. We have Elk River, Rogers, and Albertville. What's wrong with putting 3 full-time staff at Albertville? If they don't like that idea, we've got other options that would love to have that. My understanding that Dayton's having a hard time with staffing. Bolster what we have, save the 20 million. In closing, I would just say that in the words of a man that we all know and love, Mr. Mayor, you're fired.
Thank you.
Hi, Council. Michael Hupty, 17524 59th Street Northeast, Otsego. Just a couple points. Our taxes are already high enough on a less than a quarter acre. My wife and I pay $4,900 on a quarter acre. Adding a fire station is going to obviously increase that. I don't know what it will because I've never seen any numbers and people throw out a lot of numbers, and I'm not going to say what it is because I don't know, but obviously it's going to increase it. The second thing I wanted to bring up is, as I sit and think about, okay, what are the benefits for me and my family or my community where I currently live? So I'm talking about close neighbors. As it sits right now, Dayton's fire department is 6 miles from me. Elk Rivers is about 7 miles. Rogers is about 4.5 or 4.8 miles. This new location is about 6.5 to 7 miles away from me. So I'm gonna pay higher homeowner, or I'm gonna pay higher taxes for a fire department that's further away. That makes no sense. People keep coming up here and saying, well, your homeowner's insurance is gonna go down. Imagine going to my homeowner's insurance and saying, hey, good news, we have a fire station built. It's further away. Can I get a decrease in that now? What do you think they're gonna say? No. I mean, make it make sense. That makes no sense to say your homeowner insurance is gonna go down when a fire department is further away from me. Next, we hired somebody as an EMS coordinator. I don't know how long they've been employed as that. I mean, that's crazy to me. Is this individual going to be the one building the building? I mean, what are they working on currently? Everybody's asked that and no one can give an answer. Is he designing it? Is he building it? Is he sending it out for bids? Nobody's seen 3 bids, 4 bids, 5 bids either. It sounds like we've already picked somebody, but I don't know. And the final thing I just wanted to bring up is if you guys actually truly cared about what the public would want, you'd put it out for referendum. And you guys know that deep down inside, you know that, but you won't do it because you know it'll get shot down. You know it. You absolutely know it, but you won't do it because you want to put it up so you can go to your coffee shops here and say, you see that beautiful building that was 20, 30, whatever million? We did that. We built that. It's completely fiscally irresponsible to do it. And you guys know it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara Holmberg, 11537 80th Street Northeast. When we talk about transparency in a community, I find no transparency in the monthly or the bi-monthly brochure that comes out and talks about fluffy whatever things. I had no idea that this fire station situation had been going on for so long. There was never any talk that would be made public to all of the residents about this situation. And so therefore, I believe you have gone ahead without making all of these minute decisions that add up to a lot of money. And we residents aren't even aware of those particulars. And I truly believe that we as residents, tax-paying residents, deserve to know more of what it is you are deciding on our behalf. It doesn't seem like you're interested in wanting to know the opinions of your residents. I've never had a fire in my home, but I don't see the practicality of it at this point when everybody is really trying to stretch their dollar. Why not continue with what we have? Because I haven't heard of any complaints about it. If there were some problems, why wasn't that in that newsletter? That's the kind of thing our residents want. We want details, and it doesn't have to be a book that comes out. It just has to have some real definite priority information for us to make a reasonable decision and come to you and say, you know, I have a problem with this $20-some million fire station. And then we have to get it funded for the hired help and the fire engine. I mean, there's a lot to it. And that should be itemized out a lot more than what we've heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Hi, Melody Bruin, 17681 52nd Street Northeast. 2 questions. So I had a very thoughtful email conversation with Mr. Rosh this week, and I appreciate that. I was emailed a map that said to get to my house was 6.12 minutes. And then you add the 2 minutes for the prep time to get in the truck. Seems like the best case scenario timing. He actually took the initiative and drove this path to my house himself. wrote back and it was 6.53 minutes, which gives you with the 2 minutes is 8.53 minutes, which is under the 9 minutes, but this seems like a very best case scenario for my house. And I think I said at the planning commission that in 2018, there was a document referenced in 2018 that was used for some of the studies. My development did not exist then. And so I really am concerned that we are going to be stretched past that 9 minutes. And maybe I should just anticipate that my house will be a total loss, maybe get some fire extinguishers like that. Those are the things that are running through my head as a citizen. And then secondly, I believe we bought the property in 2018. What have we done to save money in the last 6 years, knowing we wanted to do this? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Isabel Green. You guys already know my position about the fire station, which I spoke last week. I'm just want to say, united together. I'm still so proud of Otsego because we are stronger together, and I love to see everybody talking tonight. I promise one of our community that I'm gonna bring some letters that people give it to me. So it's 2 of these, and I would like to give it to you today.
Sure, you can give it to the clerk.
And thank you. We can do it, Otsego.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other?
Mike Reese, 12096 68th Circle. I'm a lot closer to the Albertville Fire Station than I will be this Otsego Fire Station. It concerns me that the spending for this isn't going to be beneficial for people that live super close to these contracted agencies. I tried to get a hold of Albertville. They did not get back to me. I tried to get hold of Rogers. They said, talk with your city council. I said, the chief of Elk River got back to me, and I asked him, I said, are you having any trouble responding to any service calls? And he said, no, we're not. We're doing fine. And, you know, and he told me that, their fire service contract is ending in 2027 with the city of Otsego. And I want to know is why is that already planned when there hasn't been a vote on this issue yet? Like it sounds predetermined that we're going to get the city fire department going without doing it properly. You've made decisions through other cities. The 2018 fire study says right now we should be in a period of attempting to find a common method to pay for contracted fire departments to ease the implementation of the closest response areas without increasing costs to the city. And this fire department, the financing is just outrageous. I can't go get a mortgage and then get a second mortgage just to pay the interest on the first one. I would be homeless. You know, and so there's a sheet that said 1,500 calls or something for service. Well, anytime an agency responds to that, it gets multiple counts. Now, Elk River said that they were doing fine with their service. I looked back at that and I counted all their service calls, non-EMS, EMS, fire. When I added it up on that sheet, if I did it right, it was 798. It was over half of that 1,500 document. And they say they're having no trouble responding to service calls in our area. So I want the council to seriously think about this. It needs to, the financial planning needs to be reworked. We can't jump in head first into this and think it's all going to be okay. I don't know what my bills are going to be next month or, you know, next year, whatever. They keep going up every year anyway. I don't need that to go up any faster than they are unnecessarily. Just the council needs to reevaluate this plan, this financial plan, and it sounds like from what I heard from Elk River, it's a done deal. And I really just want a pause from my council and city government for me and the other residents so we can figure this out the right way.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Mark Nystrom, 9565 Park Avenue. I don't believe everything that I hear or read on the internet either. I try to get the facts right. So I looked into fire departments in Minnesota, and this is old because they probably only do it every 10 years, but in 2015, there were 17 cities with full-time firefighters in the whole state of Minnesota. Every fire department needs volunteers. They're not getting them. So I get the fact that you want a full-time fire department, you know, it's the best thing you can have. But I was told that Albertville's budget, we pay 60% of their budget. I don't know if that's true or not. But I do know that Minneapolis is going to pay $4.6 million in the next 3 years for 15 additional firefighter training. And like I said, 3 firefighters in this city aren't going to cut it. You're going to have double that at least. So, you know, it won't be 4.6, but it might be 2.3 million more for training. And, you know, I get it. We need one, but I don't think we need one this minute. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Rhonda Rosine, 8863 Calway. I just want to say that I hope every one of you at night, when you put your head down on the pillow, you think about, you have a great responsibility when you are on this council, that every one of you is serving we, the citizens of Otsego. You don't serve anyone else but us. And you are elected by this community. You are not elected by yourself. There's an election coming up, and I think the fact that you have not been transparent with the citizens of this city is really a shame. I see it in our government. I'm tired of overreach. I'm tired of government spending without the concern of us, the citizens. And I pray that God would convict you when you put your head on the pillow every night, that you can go to bed and sleep knowing that you've done the right thing. Because there is going to come a day where we're going to stand before the Lord on judgment, and you will all be judged for the decisions you make in this life. None of us will not go without judgment. And so I pray that you would take seriously how the citizens of this city feel, and that if you truly, I'm not disagreeing that we someday don't need a fire department. I'm just not sure it's now. And I think that it's wrong and irresponsible that you are not putting it to a vote and allowing the citizens of this city to vote for it. That you are going to do an EDA where you're going to take and put a huge financial responsibility on our city. And that it's wrong. We, the citizens of this city, should have a right to vote on that. And we should have a right to say yes or no to it. And I thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Mike Reese again, 1209668. Couple things I forgot about to ask. Has there been any evaluation with any of these other agencies about contracts and mutual aid? I know in the planning commission, there was a lot of talk about mutual aid and this and that for fire help. Now, has there actually been, has there been talk about that in city council meetings? Do you know if cities are going to have that response, that response for us if we have our own fire department? Or are we going to be stuck and, with our own fire department, and then they still want contracted money for us? So are we going to get a double whammy with, they still want contracts and we're paying for our own fire department? Has that been looked at? I don't know, but definitely something that should be thought of financially too in this fire station.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sure.
Awesome. Chuck Norris, 15399 76th Street Northeast. I just wanted to add one more piece to this. I actually got Mr. Dunlap to admit that where I live would benefit from having a new fire station. So what is right near my house? Right down the street, Otsego Elementary. There's numerous in-home daycares. There's one child center where my daughter goes to. So I mentioned before our 911 call response time was 3 minutes for our fire. So one of the areas I reached out to was Department of Homeland Security. One of the things they sent me was talking about response times for 911. So US regulators right now estimate at least 10,000 lives can be saved every year by just improving 911 response time by 1 minute. So again, I ask you, right down the street from my house, Otsego Elementary School, my neighborhood, the neighborhoods around us, fill multiple school buses with children. 1 minute could save our kids' lives. Does somebody from Otsego have to pass away so that somebody will take this seriously? And we're talking about our kids' lives here. I have 3 young children, ages 10 and under. I coach girls softball, I coach girls hockey. Most important thing to us is safety for our kids. This is what we're talking about. It's not about taxes, it's part of the issue. Things cost money, but this is about safety for myself, my family, my neighbors, the kids I coach, the kids at my daughter's schools, everybody in this room as well too. This may not be perfect, but it's going to improve the situation here. What we have right now might not be broken, but it's going to make it better. It's just something we can continue to build upon. Again, this is personal to me because I've gone through it. At the end of the day, the worst thing that happened to me is I had to live with my in-laws for 2 months. But outside of that, this is going to make us better as a community. It's going to attract more. Somebody brought up, I can't remember which candidate was, they're going to pay for this by increasing the tax base. Some reasons companies can't move here right now is because we don't have a fire station. The cost for insurance for them doesn't make it worth it. This will help our community grow by just having a fire station will attract more businesses. It'll attract more people to the community. I talked to one fire chief who said their biggest struggle right now is volunteer firefighters. Starting with 10 firefighters full time, some of the chiefs I talked to, they would be in heaven right now if they had that. That's going to allow us to grow, build more fire stations eventually. It's going to continue to serve all the people in the city. I think the communication around this could have been better because there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I just ask everybody, do your own research, talk to other people. Just because you see something on the internet, whether it's myself, Mr. Dunlap, or somebody else, don't accept it as absolute fact. I know there's a lot of support in this community for the fire station. My wife and I started that petition back in 2018. I think at the time we got about 450 signatures. We've gotten almost 100 in the last 2 days. So there's more support than what is here tonight. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other comments?
Nancy Anderson, 9031 Mason Avenue Northeast. I think at some point you have to play the odds. I understand that there has not been a fatal fire in Otsego in 20 years. And you can talk about being close to the school and things happen. A tornado could hit the school. we haven't had big problems. So I think we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. That's my comment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chuck Hediger, 9539 Parkington Avenue. Mr. Norris here just stated that, he wants the council and the city to make him feel safer. Well, I was raised as it is your own responsibility to make you and your own as safe as possible. Buy some fire extinguishers. Do that stuff. I mean, how many homes have fire extinguishers? Mine has 5. I have 2 in the garage, 1 in the kitchen, 1 down the hall, 3 downstairs. Put them wherever you need to put them. I mean, you're your first line of defense, not firefighters 10 minutes away, 6 minutes away, 7 minutes away. A house is on fire. You're going to get damage, water damage. You're going to lose things. My family had a fire when I was 7. We lived 10 miles from nearest volunteer fire station. It took them 20 minutes to get there. The house was a total loss. But all of us were safe, and that's all that mattered. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chuck Norris, one last point again. So he brought up a very good point here. One thing we really haven't talked about is what else firefighters do. So just going straight from the Elk River site, they had 109 calls for Otsego in 2023. 20% of those were motor vehicle accidents. 22.5% of them were for CO2 alarms. 16% were for gas leaks. 67 year to date, 20% of those motor vehicles, 20% medical assist, 17% natural gas leaks. There's more than firefighters do than just fight fires. Talking about making us more safe or safer, they're first responders. Car accidents right on 101. Who doesn't want to have a firefighter or somebody there faster? You get into the river like there was last year, just coming over 101. Firefighters are going to be the first responders. Talking about making our kids safer at schools. Yeah, a tornado could hit the school. First responders are going to be firefighters. There's more than just fighting fires that they do. And I think that that's an important thing for us to consider here. I mean, some of the stuff I've seen on Facebook, this is not a political issue. I understand taxes increase and nobody wants to spend more money. We're talking about safety. Again, not just firefighting, responding to accidents, whether it be motor vehicle accidents, natural gas leaks. There's a lot of things that firefighters do that we don't talk about enough here. Like I said, I reached out to a ton of these different fire chiefs. And one of the last things I wanted to say was there was one chief who was the deputy fire chief of Beloit, Wisconsin. Again, my asked question to them was, did I understand these guidelines correctly for response times, which I did. The second piece of it was making sure water was on the scene. That was correct as well too. That person said PS, and this was unsolicited. I didn't even mention who our fire chief was going to be. He said, PS, Chief Roush was the chief of 2 departments close to where I'm currently working. He was a great fire chief. Let him lead and you will have great results. So I encourage people, ask questions of the right people. Make sure you truly understand this issue and not make it just a tax, because that's where this gets lost. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Davis, 6689 Packard Avenue Northeast. Earlier this year, probably February timeframe, I sent a questionnaire up to all 3 fire departments in all the 3 cities and asked them if they had any plans at all to not continue with the contract. They all assured me there were no such plans by any of those cities. As far as safety, we're talking about what you can do to protect yourself at home. Fire extinguishers, smoke alarms. I just went through all of mine this past week. And as Jessica knows, last week, Thursday when I called her, there was another fire in that complex down here that 3 units burned. It was a lint fire. How many people checked their lint in the thing and into the tube that exhausted? It's personal responsibility. The other thing is to know about CPR. I know what it's like to wait for help when somebody has a pulmonary embolism, because I've gone through it like 6 or 7 times. you wait and you wait, and it seems no matter how long you wait, 3 minutes seems like 3 hours. Best thing you can do is prepare yourself to know how to do CPR. And unfortunately, I had a situation where I came upon a car accident out the middle of nowhere when one other car had stopped to help. And I ended up doing CPR on a 24-year-old guy for half an hour by myself. I had no idea how tired that would make you. A half hour later, the cops showed up and the fire department showed up, and they literally pulled me off the kid. They worked on him 20 minutes and they finally gave up and he died. I look at it like yesterday. So you'd have to take a lot of accountability yourself for taking care of things. Prevention is the main thing. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Mike Reese, 12096 68th Circle. Just want to say we're talking about all these first responders and stuff. Law enforcement is also a first responder.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David Shaptala, 16592 72nd Court Northeast. Mayor for Otsego candidate. I've lived here for 22 years. I call this home. Most people that have moved out here for a reason, because of the lower property taxes. And I have a new family and I live in a townhome and we pay almost $3,000 in property taxes for a lot that I don't even own pretty much. And, you know, money's tight nowadays with inflation, and a lot of people also in the Otsego community are retired and they also live on tight budgets. And with everything going up in price, people are struggling with that. $15 there, $20 there, it adds up. Our HOA fee just went up $40 this year. We're having an HOA meeting next month. I don't know how much we're gonna have to raise it up, you know? So just with money just going left and right, we're just being squeezed. And I just see that the city is spending money left and right without looking at the budget and just making smart decisions. I'm not against the fire department for the future, but right now, the current situation is I don't think people are financially in a good place to be able to afford that. Like people have said, maybe we should save up money, put a down payment for the fire department. Maybe we build a smaller substation, you know, and there's other, Albertville, Elk River, Rogers. Rogers just built a brand new fire station. Dayton is much closer to me. We can be in contact with them. I know they're struggling to find firefighters themselves, but there's a reason why people have moved out here and have lived here, is because it's been a place to live cheaper than Hennepin County, but now it's turning into Hennepin County. So I would just reconsider this, you know, we don't need to build one right now, but we can push it off, you know, this doesn't need to happen right now. So I just encourage you guys to just rethink your guys' decision. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Hello,
Hello.
Mark Voorhees, 15423 76th Street Northeast. I grew up in a family of firefighters and police officers. To me, the added benefit of a fire station is that it is also a community center. I grew up going to numerous open houses, birthday parties, fire training exercises. I take my kids these days to the ones in Elk River and the one in Rogers, and I feel that sense of community that comes along with having these events, having the pride and having something that's yours. And as much as I love seeing everybody once a year at the Prairie Festival, I would love to see it more often than that. And I think the community center within the fire station is one of the best ways to do that. So I'm fully supportive of the fire station. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Any other comments? Pause one more time for any other comments. Okay. We will close the open forum. And we will move on to item 2 to consider agenda for approval. Does anyone have anything that they would like to add or delete at this time? No changes on a motion would be in order?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
could we bring down item 3.12 off the consent agenda?
Okay, request to move it. Would you like it to go to item 7.1?
7.1, that works.
I'm sorry, 3.12, correct?
3.12, correct.
Right. Right, any other changes? Otherwise, a motion to approve would be in order.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Ryan.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion by Ryan, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next item is our consent agenda. Again, item 3.12 has been removed. Audra?
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
I
Ryan.
move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion by Ryan, seconded by Brittany. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next item is a public hearing for Queens Avenue easement. I will turn this over to the city planner.
Thank you, Mayor. The city has initiated a vacation of a drainage and utility easement along the property at 5861 Queens Avenue. That's Metro Home Insulation. This is being done in conjunction with a stormwater improvement project that was just approved by the council on the consent agenda. That's on the south lot line of this property between Metro Home Insulation and Canvas Craft. That improvement will put in place a stormwater pipe to convey stormwater underneath Queens Avenue and address some long-term drainage issues in that area that initially developed under Frankfurt Township jurisdiction. As part of this, working with the Metro Home Insulation property owner, the city's proposing to vacate what was a drainage and utility easement that bisected their parking area. With the stormwater improvement project, the drainage and utility easement no longer serves public purpose. Vacating it would allow the property owner the opportunity to use the property to a fuller extent than they are now with that easement in place. So the vacation is appropriate for both those reasons. Public hearing is required by Minnesota statutes in order to consider the vacation of the hearing or vacation of the easement, which would be conducted now. City staff's recommendation is that the easement be vacated as set forth in resolution 2024-66 provided in your packet this evening.
Thank you. Audra, has the city received any comments?
Mayor, we have not received any comments.
Thank you. At this time, I will open the public hearing. This is again, you can come to the podium, state your name and address, limit comments to 5 minutes or less regarding this drainage and utility easement vacation. I'll ask again if there's any public comments. And for the record, I'll ask one more time.
Any way we can have more information about it? Because I just, before I even say any comments, I would like to have more information, to be honest. Thanks.
Mayor?
Yes, Dan?
So as I explained, the city's doing a stormwater improvement project along this south property line that will include a pipe overlaid by drainage and utility easement in that location to carry stormwater as part of the regional drainage in that area. City previously had easement across this property for stormwater purposes. That is not needed once this improvement project is completed. So the city is releasing its drainage and utility easement rights over that portion of the property back to the property owner, allowing them more full use of the property. This is appropriate because the city maintains those easements only when needed for public purpose. With the completion of the stormwater improvement program and project along the south property line, there is no public purpose associated with this easement any longer, and it's appropriate to turn that property back to the property owner.
All right, so I will ask again if there's any public comment regarding this project. Any other public comment? We will close the public hearing and we will move it back up to the council for questions for staff on this, or a motion to approve would be in order. Are there any comments?
Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Yes, Tina?
Motion to adopt resolution 2024-66 vacating drainage and utility easements for 5861 Queens Avenue.
Second.
Motion by Tina, seconded by Ryan. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item 5.1 under public safety, it's our fire and emergency services building project authorization to bid. I will turn this over to our emergency services director.
Thank you, Mayor. So in November of 2022, this body voted to move forward with formation of a department. The directed city staff in relation to that to come up with plans and specifications to move the project forward incrementally. We started out by looking at the design of the apparatus, since there's a very long lead time on those apparatus. The next logical step was to work on design of the building. Kraus Anderson is our construction management partner, has been helping us with the estimating. Wald Architects is the design firm that was retained by the city through action by the city council to help design the building. Both of those folks are here tonight, and I'm going to ask them to speak a little bit about what they've done to bring this process to the point that it is now. And then I'll come back and answer questions for you, and then discuss the motion. So if you'd have the next slide, please. So I'm going to have Walt come up and talk about the design of the station. So we got Jonathan Ruth, who's one of the principal at Walt, and Jacob Oldsack, who has been helping us on this project in particular.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, council. As Daryl said, this has been an ongoing project we've been working on for quite some time. A lot of staff involvement, some council involvement along the way. We'll just give a really brief overview of kind of the site plan, a little bit about the building plan, and then I'll turn it over to Jake to look at some of the just design aspects as well. But try to make it pretty brief. We've had a lot of other comments and things like that, and I'd like to get it back to Daryl when we can. So what you're looking at here is just the actual site forces diagram of the building. So it shows kind of the north end of the building is where a lot of the administration and staff areas are. The south side is where those apparatus bays be located. It's configured in such a way to have drive-through apparatus bays. Again, that increases response time and allows for just a more efficient operation of fire apparatus moving in and out of the station. So they don't have to back in. They can always be moving in a singular direction through the station. And I think that was one thing, just aspect of the site plan and looking at sort of the operations of the facilities in general was that response time, and just a very key focus on the movement through the facility and around it as well. So whenever we're looking at the different needs within the building, we're also looking at the needs out of the building as well. So definitely a focus on how they're getting off of each of the cross streets there. We looked quite a bit in detail at the grade of the facility and making sure that we didn't have slopes that weren't advantageous to vehicles moving in and out of there. And then the other thing I would say is that we looked at different areas where the public would experience that building when they're coming to visit. I think it was mentioned earlier about likely having some open houses and things like that. So it's definitely a facility that is intended to be for the entire city, not just for firefighters as well. But we can go into maybe the plans a little bit as well and talk about that too then. So as I said, that north half is mainly the administration and staff areas. At the east side, you're looking at that main entry
and kind of a training and citywide, conference room that could be used. And then south of that is where you've got the administration offices. And then really to the east, the west side of that area, that's really the living areas for your duty crew that it would be using that station, and responding to the south side of that where the apparatus bays are. So we've got some of the trucks, some of the apparatus that are being purchased, sort of shown graphically within the station now, and you can see how they kind of fit within those different areas, as well as a mezzanine that bisects apparatus area that has some of the training features. Bless you, but then also has some of the actual storm shelter feature within that building. That's actually a more recent development in Minnesota Building Code. So you have to have a portion of the structure that can house a number of staff within that area. And so that actually has ended up increasing costs of a lot of fire stations, I'd say, throughout the state and within the boundaries of where that's required. It's not throughout the entire state, but there's kind of a line that you draw where the storms tend to be more severe and that's required. So you kind of see thicker lines around that area on the southeast side. That's what that's intended to be for. So again, a real focus on safety within the facility and operations throughout the facility to make sure that people can respond to those emergencies as quickly as possible, but also have it be a building that is available for the public for those training things and open houses and things like that as well.
From an exterior standpoint, really wanted to kind of minimize the cost and make this an efficient building. So we are using precast panels around the entire perimeter. We've got a little bit of wood finish. We do want to have the, this is a point of pride for the community. So we wanted to make sure it felt warm. So there is a little bit of wood, but as I mentioned, we're primarily using architectural precast panels. What that means is these panels are going to get made in a factory, shipped to the site here, and the building will go up pretty quick. It'll probably be a couple weeks, and you'll have a full perimeter of building with those walls that go up. So we did put a lot of care and effort into minimizing cost and making sure that this building was efficient for the city. And we are using some different finishes on that precast. It's not a huge add for cost on that front, but we're trying to do everything we can to keep costs down on the overall project and design. Any other slides? There's just one, Ed. So this is a kind of a side elevation view. Another thing that we're trying to do with the building is implement different training areas throughout within the building and on the outside. So you'll notice on the upper right corner is a hose tower for hanging hoses, but it also doubles as a training tower and has a couple openings on the exterior for doing different training exercises with the department. But again, primary material was the precast that you see in the gray there, sprinkling in a little bit of the wood and glass where it makes sense to have daylight for the different living spaces. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys.
So as we said, the direction that we were given through internal discussion and from the council was that we wanted this facility to be able to handle the services for the community as the community continues to grow as well. Yes, we could have built a much smaller structure, which would then probably only serve the community for a few years before we would need to expand it again. So the goal here was to make this a 50-year building. That also led to the use of the precast concrete panels. It makes it a very resilient building, very storm-proof, much more so than a steel frame or a wood frame building would be. So Wald has helped us through that process to get to where we are today. Kraus and Anderson has been helping us with the estimating, and we're also proposing tonight that they help us manage the bid process. The bid process will then put the project out to multiple contractors who will look at the project and come up with
a bid to actually do various portions of the project. So there likely will be in excess of 20 different contractors that would be involved with this. Kraus Anderson helps manage all of those pieces and make sure that the schedule works well. In the future, Kraus Anderson will also help us with construction management to manage the schedule and how that all comes together. So I've got Mike Phillips from Kraus Anderson. He has been our project manager for this project. He has helped us with the initial estimate. One of the things that the council has been asking for is to get a better handle on whether our estimates that we presented, if you remember back in March, we had a very detailed presentation to the city council that laid out a lot of these things, including the cost of the building, the cost of the apparatus, the cost of staffing. A lot of those things were covered in that presentation. That presentation, for anybody who may be listening, that presentation material is available on the city's website. It lays out much of the operating costs and those other elements as well. So I'm going to ask Mike Phillips to come up and talk just a little bit about the estimate, how we developed the estimate that we've been using, and then also talk a little bit about the process to manage that bidding as we go forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daryl. Mayor, Council, Mike Phillips, Kraus Anderson. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. My eyes are a little bad, so I apologize. That's hard to see. I do have it up in front of me here just so I can speak to it as well. In the 4 columns from left to right, we start with the original budget, and then there's design milestones throughout this process. So at 3 different points, very early in the process after the original budget update, which was done back in fall of 2023, we put together a concept estimate in March of 24, a schematic design estimate, which is another design milestone within the design process in June. And then most recently here, about 3 weeks ago, completed a design development, which is the last stage of design before you get to construction documents or go out to bid. And what I would say, again, I know these numbers are hard to read, in the red line, brownish red line in the middle that comes across, that's sometimes referred to as hard costs or construction cost, the bricks and mortar of what it takes to put together a building and to build a building. Back in fall of 23 through March of 24, that was roughly a $17.5 million number. The number design development, again, back on September 5th here of this month, at 17.44 million. So where we thought we would be back in the fall of 23 is where we're at now in the fall of 24. The numbers down on the bottom to the orange are what we refer to as soft costs in construction. Those costs are typically on the owner's side of the construction project, and those include things like design fees, construction manager fees, permits, plan reviews, construction testing and inspections, bidding processes, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, or what's known as FF&E. So the things, if you think about shaking a building upside down, what falls out, that's typically FF&E. Those expenditures, we had originally pegged those back in the fall of 24 at about just shy of $4.5 million. From March of this year through this fall, that number is between 3.5 to 3.75 million. What does that mean in totality? Again, original budget that was put together back in fall of 23 at roughly $22 million. And today, happy to report we're just a hair over $21 million, so under where we thought we would be a year ago at this time, which is good news and a credit to the individuals at the city and Wold as a design team. This is a partnership as we work through this process. Multiple user group meetings, getting input from key stakeholders, and working through a design process to bring a purpose-built fire station to the city of Otsego. Just to speak quickly, because I know we're probably running a little bit late on time, where do these numbers come from? So as we go through and we do estimates at each one of these design stage milestones, we are looking at recently bid projects that Kraus Anderson has put out, other projects, whether they be fire stations or not, in terms of the individual unit costs of what are mechanical systems, what is concrete at, what's steel, what's roofing. And we look at that in totality and then right sides that for the project that we have in Otsego. We also will reach out to specific key contractors that are likely to bid on this project should it go out for bid. We reach out to those contractors and ask for real pricing on this project specifically. I think the estimate that we put together
in September. Off the top of my head, I want to say we reached out to about 12 to 15 unique contractors to gauge pricing. So we're very confident in the pricing that we've put forth for Daryl and team. Daryl, is there anything else that you wanted me to hit on? Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Not right yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike. Thank you.
So the process that we've gone through has brought us to this point. The next logical step in order to take this project any farther is to actually see if our estimate is correct. We'll do that by putting the project out on the street, asking for bids, verify that those numbers are correct. We'll bring that information back to the council for action. I would like to add a couple of things. There was a comment made, and it's been made quite a number of times, of, you know, what does this guy do when we don't have a fire department? Well, this is what I and city staff have been doing for the last 15 months. Literally thousands of hours have gone into speccing equipment, writing policies, designing the building, working with partners. A lot of the questions that were asked tonight have been considered, and there's a lot of moving parts that still have to come together, but we're meeting the milestones that we laid out back in January, February, March of this year, and even before that, going clear back to last year. During the interview process, we laid out a lot of dates, and I was given a lot of direction by the council on what they wanted to see and how they wanted to do it. I will point out that this decision to move forward with this project was made in November of 2022, prior to me being hired. City staff and I have been following the directions that the city council gave us. City staff and I have stayed out of the politics that are involved purposely, because we're following the directions that you all have given us. If that direction from the council changes, staff and I certainly will follow the direction given at that time. But until that direction is changed, we are moving ahead with the project that we were asked to provide. With that, I will answer questions.
Daryl, I have a few questions, and this comes from questions that were at the planning commission and along with tonight. Contracts, people ask, are we going to be contracting once this is operational? So can you talk about contracts now and what that looks like for the future?
Yes, so right now we contract with each of the departments. All three of the contracts that we have are open-ended contracts. They are not going to expire in 2027. I think the date 2027 was set as a target date for our department to come operational. That's probably where that current comment came from. There is no termination date, and I have not had any indication from any of the three departments that they are imminently going to terminate their service contracts that we have. One thing that we've seen with the contracts, though, is the previous 4 years up until now, we've seen a 14% increase annually in those contracts. The increase for next year is 15.9% as projected by the initial budgets that each of the contracted agencies sent us. So if you carry that number forward to 2027, 2028, the cost to operate our department will actually likely be less than the cost for the contracted services based on that rate of increase. I've had people tell me that, you know, a 15% increase is an anomaly, but it really is proven over the last 5 years that it's not necessarily an anomaly. Some of those contracted departments are moving towards career staffing and a model very much like what we have proposed. If that happens, those contract costs very likely could increase at even faster rate. Okay. We believe that the model that we are proposing with a limited career staff backed up by 20 paid on call volunteers is the model that many of the suburban communities are going to or will be going to, largely because you can't expect volunteers to provide the quantity, not the quality, the quantity of service that's now being required by these growing communities. Every community that's in our area is growing exponentially. And we can only expect if
to see what Otsego is doing, what those other communities are increasing at the same time. I know there are some merger conversations going on in some other communities, but certainly most of the metro suburban departments have already gone to the model that we're proposing, or even gone past that model and going to full career staffing.
Can you talk about that staffing? Just because I believe the comments were made even tonight and at the previous meeting that there'd only be 3 people there, as you
Yeah,
mentioned.
our proposal is to begin with 3 people on duty every day, backed up by the 20 volunteers. The 3 people will be able to handle quite a number of the more routine calls. However, on more advanced calls, such as structure fires, fire accidents, and those kind of things, the volunteers will still be called. What the 3 people on duty does is give you an immediate suppression response to the incident. So that's not an SUV arriving at a fire. That's a fully staffed fire engine with 1,000 gallons of water, 3 people on it, and essentially a rolling toolbox of all of the things that they need to deal with most of the emergencies. We went through and did a hand count of all of the emergency calls that happened within the city of Otsego in 2023. Based on that, we anticipate in the first year of service for this department will respond to 202 fire-related calls, so fires, car accidents, carbon monoxide calls, those kind of things, and about 659 EMS calls. EMS presence will be much more robust. One of the things that we don't control in the city of Otsego is who provides ambulance service and how they do it. Those ambulance services have protected areas. They're regulated by the state. The city has really no oversight and no ability to affect that. Our community is divided into 3 different sections for ambulance service. So some of it comes from Elk River, some of it comes from Alina out of St. Michael, some of it comes from Monticello. Because those ambulances are coming from outside of the community, there quite often is unacceptable delays for EMS response. Our 3 people on duty every day will respond immediately. They will be EMT trained. They'll be able to do advanced life support, help support the patient until that transport unit or paramedic unit from one of the ambulance services arrives. Our response will be much more robust than the current contracted services. The current contracted fire departments have a very limited EMS response. And when 80% of our calls are going to be EMS, I think that we need to address that delay as well as addressing the fire response. My goal would be to bring an ambulance service into our building. Not that we would take over EMS and do transports. I don't think that anybody on city staff or on the council want to go that direction, although some departments have. But we will provide that missing link between the emergency happening and get that advanced level care to help. Our EMTs will likely work under Alina medical director. Our protocols will match their protocols. And through the discussions that we've had with them, we'll be able to provide just about all of the care that Alina provides, with the exception of being able to administer drugs. In order to administer drugs in Minnesota, you have to be a paramedic. So, but early defibrillation, CPR, airway management, anaphylactic shock, all of those type of things will be able to help manage that until that higher level of care gets there. Another question?
Also, other questions?
Yes, Daryl, can you, because this was brought up as well tonight and previous, but about mutual aid. Do we pay them once we have our own, and how does that work with mutual aid?
So there's 2 levels of aid. Number 1 is automatic aid. That happens based on the type of call. The dispatcher can make the decision to dispatch more than one department. That's essentially what we have with the 3 contracted departments today. So if there's a structure fire in the city today, all 3 of the contracted departments are automatically dispatched. Through the conversations that I've had with the chiefs and Adam has had with their city managers, that automatic aid will continue without any interruption. Okay. Mutual aid can be a bit different. We have to call and ask for that. Okay. We could have mutual aid from any department, whether it be an adjoining department or even farther away. I should add on the automatic aid side, we currently have automatic aid with 3 departments. Our goal is to have automatic aid with Monticello, Albertville, St. Michael's, Dayton, and Rogers as a minimum. So we'll actually be adding many more departments. What we would do though is rather than calling all 3 of them, or all of them, no matter where we are in the city, we would set up a box alarm system, which is depending on what part of the city that you were in, that aid would come from there. So if you live over on the east side of town, like Frankfurt Park area where the east wastewater plant is, likely the 2 mutual aid or automatic aid departments there would be Dayton and Rogers. Consequently, if you're on the other side over by Albertville, it may be Albertville and Monticello, it could be Albertville and St. Michael's, depending on which departments are closer. So we're actually adding quite a much larger capability when it comes to that automatic aid. Okay. Further, I've not found any department, whether they're adjacent to us or in the metro area, that has said if we called them for mutual aid, that they would not send a resource. Okay. The only thing with both of those is they need to take care of their own communities first. So if they have the resources available, they may respond to us. All of the departments that I've talked to have indicated that that would not be an issue with continuing that.
Madam Mayor,
That's right.
Chief, can we clarify something you said in our budget meeting then? Because I think you had mentioned that there's some concern from some of the other communities that we would not be able to, that the mutual aid would be very unmutual. And you said we're probably going to have to add staff higher than what was previously estimated in order to, I guess, assuage some of their concerns, to make sure that they're not always just helping us.
I don't think that that's true. Mutual aid, again, we would provide mutual aid based on our ability. So as long as we have volunteer response, we certainly would be able to send that mutual aid. Okay. I don't expect that we would need mutual aid for routine incidents within the city. Most of the aid that we would need, just like the contracted departments do now, most of the aid that they need are for significantly large incidents. So I don't expect that we'll need to call them for mutual aid on a daily or a weekly basis. Our department with the career staffing as the initial response, followed up by the volunteer paid on call staffing, which would come to man secondary units. I don't believe that that's a significant issue.
I'm having problems with that because I think what you said in the meeting was we're probably going to have to add staff above what was originally estimated.
I don't ever recall saying that.
Okay. I spoke with Elk River, Rogers, Albertville. Elk River and Rogers said that they're kind of in a wait and see approach. They want to see what our capabilities are before they really say that mutual aid makes sense. Because of the location of our station, I think it would be reasonable to have some concern about whether we can get there in time.
Actually, our response will be very good because we have career people in the building. We lose that 6 to 7 minutes of the volunteers responding to the station.
Doesn't matter how many people are in the building if the drive time is what it is. And so when I spoke to Albertville, they had a much more significant concern. And what they told me is that they're likely going to expect us to continue the contracts in some fashion.
And I don't believe that the conversation with Adam had with their administrator reflected that at all.
Okay.
Okay, other questions for Daryl? Daryl, I have a few more. Operating budget, as you referred to, there is the information that we covered back in March.
Yes.
And the capital expenses. And then there'd be the fire station. Are you able to cover that for the residents in the audience?
So the operating budget or capital budget?
Let's take a stab at all of them.
Okay, so the capital budget, according to the estimates that Adam has put out, somewhere around $150 to $170 on an average home annually. There will be, once the department is established within the corporate city limits of Otsego, there likely will be a reduction in insurance rate. Certainly not to that extent, but it will help offset that tax increase. On the operating side, our total operating budget for 2027, including personnel, all of the equipment maintenance and operating the building is $2,140,863. Based on the 15.9% increase that we saw this year, that will equate almost exactly what our contract costs could be in 2028. So there will be a slight cost increase to the community of about $163,000 the first year over what they're paying today. Additionally, there's some state training aid and state funding that goes now to the contracted departments, amounts to about $230,000 a year, which then would be retained by the city of Otsego rather than handing that off to the contracted departments.
Can we just clarify though that the numbers that you just gave per household are just for operating costs? It's not
No.
the total cost of ownership of a fire department.
That does not, that's the capital cost for the startup for the equipment, the building, those kind of things. What we're talking about bonding for.
Okay.
The operating costs, again, largely offset, almost entirely offset by no longer paying the contracted departments and retaining the state aid and the state training reimbursement money.
Other questions? I'm going to, just because it was asked, that is some comments that this has been sprung on us. I want everyone to know that back in 2016, there was a proposal for a JPA with the city of Albertville. So that's a joint powers agreement. That model was done with Springstead, and they looked at how we could combine or what it looked like for working together for that section of the city. When the JPA was proposed, the councils between Albertville and the city of Otsego couldn't come to an agreement on that. There was discussion during that time also about there needing to be a fire station in Otsego. Then you move ahead to Five Bugle study, which was done by the city of Elk River. And that was then presented to the city council in 2017. So as we've said, we have 3 departments that serve us. And each of those cities were doing their own studies on where their next fire departments would need to be. In that Five Bugle study that presented the need for Elk River to add to their system. And that was building a fire station over by Twin Lakes, which they have since opened. And it talked about needing a fire station in Otsego to cover the section that they cover for the city of Otsego. So during both 2 different times and 2 different departments, a year apart from each other, there was discussion about needing a fire station in Otsego to be managing the city. At that time, in 2018, then a year later, the city took on the ability to go out on our own and look at having a fire study done, and that was done with Beacon GIS. So as we've heard a few people say, in 2018 it says you didn't need it. Well, the fire study did show that working with those departments, always looking at where their fire stations were moving to, that there needed to be property purchased in the city of Otsego, which we did go ahead and do. We did purchase property in 2019. We had already owned property that was along County Road 42 at the Round Barn. We own a section on Park Avenue and 85th Street that was purchased many years ago when Target was being developed and the county was looking at where we needed to have additional fire suppression. That was pointed out with the city of Elk River where we should be looking for property. And at that time, that piece became available from Low Fave, so we were able to secure 5 acres of land. In 2022 to 2023, we did the capstone study because at that point we were looking for direction on, now we own the property, what should we be doing to look at increasing and looking ahead to what will make our community safe. So these discussions have gone back and forth for years. And I can understand that maybe some people don't feel as though they were involved in the beginning, but I want you to know that our job here is to look at all residents and the future of our city. So please understand that this is not being taken lightly by any of us, and we do hear the comments from the community. But our job is to look out for everyone in the community and what's best for the residents of Otsego. Is there any other comments?
Madam Mayor, on that point, I think kind of brushed over the 2018 study there. And it's something that I think kind of frustrates me because it says in here in the justification for this project that we are implementing the recommendations of prior studies. The 2018 study said, keep the contracts. It said, build a substation here for Albertville to operate and manage. We asked the question, what happens if we get rid of the contracts and build a station there for ourselves? And the fire study said that results in the worst possible performance of all of the scenarios they examined. We are completely ignoring the study.
The study was also planning for a non-career department.
Correct.
Madam
Mayor.
So the 2018 study involved three components. The first was looking at the existing service boundaries from the contracted departments to optimize those. They hadn't been reviewed in many years, and looking at the growth that had happened, what was the best way to continue with the current services? The second element of the study was to identify locations for fire stations in Otsego. Chief Rauch is correct that it looked at options both for volunteer only and career. But it was where, if you're going to build a station in Otsego, where should it be? The number one choice in multiple scenarios was the location where the city purchased property at 75th and Odine. The third element of the study said to continue with the development of a fire station as a shared facility with one of the current contracted partners, with the expectation, as Chief Rauch said, that automatic aid and mutual aid would also continue, so that you don't look at just the one station in Otsego. It was located based on where all the other stations were, not only the ones in place at that point, but where they were going to build new stations, so that this is the optimized location. And then here's how it recommended operating it. That third element was essentially revisited with the capstone study when the council said, okay, what are our next steps? And one of the options was to consider a joint powers agreement, shared arrangement with one of the departments. The council, in looking at the pros and cons of those options, chose to move forward with its independent department, locally controlled. So in essence, that third element of the 2018 study was updated in 2023. The other thing I just wanted to emphasize is that 2018 study, yes, it was done now 6 years ago, but it was based on existing and future growth. So for areas that weren't developed in 2018, it still acknowledged what the city's comprehensive plan said would be in those areas at that time. It also looked at where the existing roads are, but also where future roads will be. So 75th Street west of Odine Avenue at some point will be extended west to connect with Nashua Avenue and provide a even more direct route to the West Sewer District versus driving south to County Road 38, then west. So these three studies, in essence, all work together, and the council, throughout that process, reached its decision to move forward with this option.
Brittany?
Madam Mayor, I was to piggyback off of Dan's comment. That was also my comment would be that the study did look at what our population was and growth in 2018, but also thought of future growth as well. We have numbers in front of us tonight. You know, I've heard that people say that we don't have any numbers, and so tonight we have a pretty good idea here. I will say that we don't have a pretty good idea as to what numbers look like
in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, whenever the council decides at that time that it is time to have a fire department and stop pushing this out. So unfortunately, it's here and it's in our lap, so.
I would point out that the estimates that are shown on the screen here do include a 5% inflation factor for construction next year. Since we're essentially a year out from construction, we did build that into that budget. So we've been seeing 5% is a little more realistic. I built a fire station in 2019 in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. 2019 to 2021, because of COVID, it took to build it. The inflation factor on that building was 11% per year. Ended up being almost 20% increase over the original estimate, largely driven by the supply chain issues, which are not completely corrected at this point. They're somewhat better, but they're still not as well as they could be. The same with equipment. If we delay purchasing apparatus, in 2015, I built 2 fire engines, a matched pair for $736,000 for the pair. In 2018, I built a new engine for Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. That engine was $542,000 in 2018. I updated that quote just before I left to come here in 2023. That engine was then $855,000. That department just ordered that engine last month. It was $1.3 million, exact same spec. So costs keep going up. So you have to kind of think about that side of the equation as well. The city did have, there was a comment made that the city has not set aside any money for this project. The city had $5.4 million in reserve to help pay for some of that equipment. Unfortunately, with the cost of that equipment as it is today, that money is pretty much will be used up by the time we get the apparatus and the small equipment that's needed to operate the department.
But that cost is there.
Correct.
To cover those items. I just want that noted for the residents.
Correct. And that was all done by previous councils and city staff that has worked for years at that. So I had nothing to do with that.
Mayor, just
Yes.
to kind of build on that, the setting aside of reserves goes back more than 20 years. Because the city has contracts with 3 different providers, each of the contracts had a different value calculation. Certain fire districts cost the city more than the other fire districts. But the city council in the early 2000s, late 1990s, made the decision to level the fire fee at the highest rate, and then use that additional money that was collected from the lower cost districts to put into the fire reserve fund to do things like acquire the property at Park and 85th Street, the property at Odine Avenue and 75th Street, complete the fire studies, etc. And then the addition of the aid money that was included in that reserve fund as well.
Other questions or comments?
Mayor,
Yes, Jeff.
if I can. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for coming up here and talking. I know it's nerve-wracking if you've never come up here and talked, and if you're already blood's already boiling about what we're doing up here. Thanks again for coming up. One thing I discussed last time we discussed back in December was our taxes. I hear taxes. That's a lot of that. A lot of comments are all of our taxes. What's going to go up? Everything goes up. It sucks. It's annoying. One thing I said back in December was, when you get your tax form, this is the biggest thing to look at, not just the city. We're talking about, for me, 21% of our taxes. Some of you are 22%, some of you are 23%. Look at this document. It's easy to look here and look at our bill. That sucks. When you see that number, oh my God, here we go. What you should be looking at is up here. I said this in December, I'll say it again. When you look at this number here, what is your home valued at? Find out where they get that number. Where they is county. County gets a number by your neighbors. What did they sell their house at? That's
basically the same as yours. That's the number you key on. Okay, what does that mean? Why am I talking about that? Well, my first year here is 2021. And just like you, we saw our taxes go nuts. Well, who do you talk to? I talked to one of our tax assessors. Why did this get so high? He kind of looked at me and said, we used to be evaluated at 60 to 80% of the value of what our neighbor sold for. 60 to 80%. Okay, that's different. That was when I moved here, it was 2013. Now we're evaluated at 100%, 100 to 105%. So if your neighbor sells at 400,000, guess what your house is worth? Yet you've lived here 30 years, 20 years, 10 years. That's what your house value is. County decided that. Why did they decide that? Because the state told them to. So what I said again in December, that is the key number. Who is in charge of that? Well, we have two representatives here. We have an east and a west side, Novotny and who's the other guy? Novotny and Hudson. You talk to those two guys. Those are our state reps. Now, if you talk to Lucero, he's our state senator. 3 guys represent us. Those are 3 of 200 people at St. Paul that represent us to get this number. Call them, get to know them, get on a first name basis with them. That's the key to start with. One thing we liked last year is, remember, we didn't have a homestead credit because our house value was too crazy. Now we finally got a homestead credit back. So we got that back. But if you look at that, you go by those, you talk to those 3 first. If you get, depending on what side you're on, east and west, then you figure out what their plan is, because they're not in session now. Their session starts next year. Okay, what are you doing? Thanks for, making our homestead credit bigger. What's your plans for next year? Because, things have been crazy. Now, one thing nice, hopefully some of you got a nice reset thanks to our inflation and whatnot. But if you look at your tax sheet, think of it then as a dinner bill. When you go to dinner and you're with friends and you go out and you see the bill, oh my God, it's that much. Do we just complain about the bill, or do we look over the bill? Who ordered the 9 steaks? Who ordered the 15 beers? No, you look at what was the cost. The big start cost is your county. What did county do? Well, we're still paying for a new sheriff's office. Anytime, go over there, go to Buffalo, check it out. Right next to that is your new government center. That's in the last 2 years. Check those places out. For what our commissioner said, it only went up 6% or 5.7. Fantastic. Those have already been built. That's after the fact. So know your county. You care about your money. Go check out Buffalo. Check all that stuff out. What your sheriff department is. What your government center is. We paid for it. We're part of it. We are one of 17 cities and 18 townships in Wright County. Go enjoy part of our money in Buffalo. Especially when it comes to 5.7, where is that going? Well, raises our deputies, raises the lawyers, raises the judges, raises all the admin staff of those buildings. So that's your county bill. What about your schools? Okay. Remember, everybody was here in 2016. Remember, we had the vote is not how you're going to pay for it, or remember, it's not if you're going to get Prairie View Elementary, it's how you're going to pay for it. Vote yes, you get bonds and whatnot, or excuse me, another school referendum, 35 million. Okay, that passed. When it comes to schools, we also have Elk River, Rogers, and Zimmerman, not just us. Those are your top 2 bills. Schools is your steak. The dessert is the county. Now you look for your appetizer, Otsego. What does Otsego do? Well, let me see. When you look at what we have here, we have parks, we have our maintenance for people, we have, streets, and then we contract for fire. We contract for our police. Hopefully you don't need police, but we still contract for them. Hopefully you don't need fire, but we still contract for them. It's better to have it and not need it, right? Than need it and not have it. Well, that you kind of look at that like, okay, is that an improvement? Well, I guess the fact is, out of 21% of your taxes, what does defunding public safety and public service look like? Well, if you look at what the city of Otsego has been taxed, we're actually pretty good for the largest city in Wright County. We're actually the lowest taxed in Wright County comparatively to other cities surrounding us. That's another thing I'm sure that will come up and you'll see to say, what the heck is he talking about? So it's kind of like, you'll see all that tax percentage. You'll see all that stuff. So when I said, what does defunding look like? when it comes to our sheriff, our deputies, when it comes to our fire. Well, if you guys want, when I started in 21, we also voted to up our coverage for our Wright County deputies to 50 hours. What does that mean? We get 5 deputies, 10-hour shifts. And I asked how the deputies work with that. How did that work for you? How's everything? Oh, it's great. I get my own shift. I get, it's a lot more, it's not bouncing all over the place. They like steady. They like it, they like it regimented enough so they know what their 10 hours is going to be. That's it. And of course, one thing great about our Wright County sheriffs, most of them live in our community. So when they leave the driveway, they're on duty. Of course, they have a police car or a deputy vehicle. You're not going to have that with fire. Wouldn't that be nice? But then you look at our 5 deputies. We have one in back. Technically, we don't have a police department, right? Well, we don't have a police station either. Or do we? If you go down the hall here and make a right and you see that room on the left and that last door, that technically, in other words, more words than one, is your police department. Our deputies go there for non-emergency business with the residents in Otsego. What's one thing great about this fire station is we get to expand for them to have more room in that station, plus more community room. This is your community room. Nobody wanted to expand our public service behind us with the Public Works building, which needs to be doubled because there's our equipment sitting outside, over $7 million in equipment, $1.5 million or over $1 million of equipment sits outside. That's money we've already spent. You guys have already spent to get it. When it comes to public service, wouldn't it be nice to have our sidewalks plowed? Well, we can't. You need more people. You need more equipment. That's not available for that yet. There's also no room to store it. So when you watch what's going on with your city, you know where your money's going with Wright County, with your schools. Then you look at your city on the 21% portion of your taxes, or 23, or whatever the math is on your taxes. Where then does the money go? So when you look at everything, it's time to fund our public service. It's time to fund our public when it comes to deputies, when it comes to fire. One person said too, what about, you are Otsego, you're the Otsego Council. Yes, we are. We also, one weird thing is we've been paying for our fire services since 93 from other cities. Why is that money leaving here? We're putting money into other taxes. We're helping out other communities and not us. So if you look from 1993, anybody can get this information. 93 to 2024, we've spent 12.6 million on fire services. So if you add 12.6 million plus what you're seeing today with fire services, this is what delaying fire services costs. 12 million, 12.6 plus the 1.4 next year, which is 14 million. And then whatever you see here. So add that all together to wait. It would have been great if they said in 93, when they planned 5 years ahead, hey, let's get some. Didn't happen. Here we are 31 years later, figuring out fire services. So again, thank you for everybody for coming out. Look at your taxes, study your numbers, see what I'm talking about. And we'll still have this again in December. So thank you for your time.
Any other comments?
I would like to add one thing if there's no more comments before I ask you to consider the motions here. I want to be very clear that I am not criticizing the service of the departments that serve us. They have provided what's been asked of them in the contract. I think where the problem lies is the contract and the service delivery model that we're contracting for really doesn't fit a community of 24,000. When I tell other fire chiefs who are my contemporaries that I went to a community of 24,000 people to help them start up a fire department, they're all incredulous that there's a community of 24,000 that does not have those services. Yes, this is not a cheap endeavor, and I fully understand the comments of the people that were here tonight, but understand that we've gotten a lot of communication on this, both sent to Audrey and a lot of questions that have been posed to me. I will tell you, if you have questions, whether it's the council or the public, send me an email. I endeavor to respond to every single email that I get and answer the questions that are asked. I think once you see all of the documentation that's been provided in multiple different formats and different forums, I think that you will agree that the
path that we're taking probably makes the most sense long-term for the community. The building, there was a comment made about the building being too large, too fancy, whatever. One of the things that we were asked to do is make the building resilient so that it could withstand weather events, that it had some longevity. We expect this building will serve the city easily for 50 years. And the staffing model that we're provided will allow us to operate from one station much longer than if we were working under a volunteer-only system. Volunteer-only system, because of the geographic area of the city being 31 square miles, would likely require more stations in order to serve appropriately, in order to reduce that response time. Okay. Public safety members, commission members are in the back row back here. We spent all day at the Prairie Festival on Saturday. We talked to over 200 people. There were some very thoughtful questions that were asked. But I would say that the vast majority of the people that we talked to were supportive of this plan. So to portray this as that there's nobody in support of this in the community, I think is incorrect.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'm sorry, but on that point, if that were true, the council wouldn't need to go around the process of allowing the citizens to petition on this and using the EDA, charging the residents an extra $1 million just to avoid a petition. If we really felt like this was popular, then why are we preventing the citizens from actually voting on it?
Point of order.
I believe it'd be time sensitive. If we delayed it till November, that would be 2 to 6 months before we'd start building. And that might go over into 2027, which means in 2027, we would have to pay our 3 fire services the extra $2 million. So we'd have $2 million for that contract, like people were fearing. We would have our contracts for our full-time firefighters. And then also the cost of our fire station. And also, I think somebody said, why do we need a Taj Mahal? Well, due to the way fire services are now, you need sleeping quarters for fire services or the firefighters. Also, when we want actual ambulance here instead of our 3 neighbors, wherever they come from, with either Elk River, St. Michael, or Monticello, you also want to be able to have the option of getting an ambulance service here, and they need those sleeping quarters also. So to have the ambulance in the center of the city, to have our 4 fire trucks, and the reason why we ordered 4 fire trucks, because that was use it or lose it money. 1.8 million ARPA funds was use it or lose it money. We didn't spend it and get those by the end of this year. Residents, I mean, of course, you wouldn't have seen 1.8 million, but we had it. And then we'd be like, oh, sorry, yeah, we don't need it. You know, that's 1.8 million. Plus, in 26, those of you who have diesels, EPA come down on fire trucks because they run all the time. Well, what happens when diesel trucks run? EPA wants to make sure black smoke don't come out. So then 70,000 a truck. So 2,080,000, all of you would have to pay for if we didn't get those trucks. It's another cost, a part of that. Plus, finally, when we get this open, when you hear all these ISOs and all those other ratings from firefighters who are for this, after we finally get this going, then we can finally start to get our grants. So it's more money we would lose if we don't get it. More money if we lose if we delay. As you can see, anybody can find the numbers that I saw, the 12.6 plus the 1.4 million, 14 million you've already spent. And to me, when I swore an oath in January 21, I swore an oath to all of you, all 23,000 residents, over 14,000 voters. What does that mean? Why do I have to, when it does the,
It's up at the
right,
council.
but that money, so then
Madam Mayor. It needs to be quiet.
you had a motion, you had time to do it.
Point of order.
So then,
Point of order. It is point of order. Point of order. It's point of order.
so basically, we're spending money we're spending money in Elk River, in Rogers, and Albertville. You are paying their taxes along with your own here. So 4 cities' taxes that council goes through because we have to have fire services for you.
We have to have our deputies for you. Where's that money go? You're paying taxes for 4 cities. So that's what I mean. When we defund, when we have defunded this long, our fire department, this money is going to the other 3 cities. Now it's time to keep our money here. So you're not paying taxes for Rogers. You're not paying taxes for Albertville. You're not paying taxes for Elk River.
It's up at the council at this point. Sorry.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Brittany.
I would like to make a motion to approve the plans and specifications and order advertisement for bids for the Otsego Fire and Emergency Service Building Project. Motion to approve an amendment to the AIA agreement documents between the City of Otsego and Kraus Anderson Construction Companies are approved in form, subject to modifications by the city attorney, and to authorize the mayor and the city clerk to execute the agreements on behalf of the city.
Second.
There's a motion by Brittany, seconded by Jeff. Is there any more discussion? I have a comment. Again, putting this out to bid gives us real numbers. This does not mean this is going to happen, but in any project that we've ever done in the city, road projects, water and sewer, we have put it out to bid to find out the numbers. These are estimates, engineering estimates at this point. We have to find out the real numbers. And to the point from the resident in the audience, we don't know what our interest rate is. So that is why we need to find it. We aren't buying anything at this point, everyone. We are putting this out to bid. We are putting this out to bid. Okay. Is there any more discussion? We have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion from the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 5.2, fire and emergency services, building, zoning, and subdivision actions. Dan.
You need to be quiet, otherwise you're out. Sheriff, come take her out, please.
Mayor.
Point of,
Take her out, please.
point of,
Now.
point of order. Staff,
Leave,
What?
please, Isabel.
point of order, everyone. It is up at the council. We are discussing this and we have turn this over to item 5.2. Out. Councilmember Gady, please. Please. Council, we are.
You don't respect me, I'm not respecting you.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Order.
We have some order at the chambers.
Point of order.
No way.
Point of order, council. We are, please stop. Residents, I'm asking you to please stop. We are in discussion up here on item 5.2. I understand you might have some comments, but please follow the process.
Mayor, thank you. Related to the proposed fire services building, it is subject to the city's zoning and subdivision ordinance. So there are a number of actions that go along with the potential construction of that, including a zoning map amendment to rezone the site to INS Institutional District, which is the zoning district that encompasses all of the city's properties as well as other public properties and also quasi-public facilities like churches, schools, etc. There's a conditional use permit required for the facility. That includes a public hearing that was held by the Planning Commission with notice mailed to surrounding property owners within 350 feet. The city is subdividing the 21 acre property to establish a lot upon which the fire station emergency services facility would be constructed. And then finally, a vacation of easements that were platted when the property was originally subdivided from the Ashwood development north of 75th Street. So the preliminary and final plat includes the approximately 5 acres at the northeast corner of the city's property, establishing that with utilities available to the property at the southeast corner. There's also a grading plan that's been prepared as part of the site developments. Set of plans for lot 1, block 1. The city would pay for The utility connections that service the building as part of the project, the same as any other developer pays to utilize those services, and easements would be established based on the proposed boundaries. The project architects, with regard to the previous item, detailed the exterior and interior of the building, so I won't repeat what they did. Essentially, the zoning ordinance establishes material requirements for buildings within this zoning district, which are the same as apply to industrial buildings. So the use of the precast concrete panel with the two different finishes on it, the inclusion of the architectural wood panels and the glass windows for the structure all exceed the requirements of the zoning ordinance. Then finally, the building height within this zoning district, the structure can be up to 35 feet. The tallest portion of the building is 34 feet, so it complies with the zoning ordinance. The site plan is set up to comply with perimeter setback requirements. Access would be provided primarily for in and outbound traffic on 75th Street. Emergency vehicles will have a direct access to Odine Avenue to be able to travel north and south, then east and west to respond accordingly. Pedestrian access, there will be a sidewalk from the front of the building out to the trail on the west side of Odine Avenue. There's also a trail on the north side of 75th Street, but no connection is planned at this time. There may be opportunity for connection in the future, depending on the future use of Outlot A once that's established. The Planning Commission, as I said, held a public hearing to consider the zoning and subdivision applications or actions at their meeting on September 16th. The project is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. The plat complies with the subdivision ordinance, and the site development plans comply with the zoning ordinance. The minutes of the Planning Commission meeting were included in your packet in draft form. That included written comments that were received prior to the conduct of the public hearing and are included as part of that record. But after closing the public hearing, the Planning Commission did vote 6-0 to recommend approval. You have an ordinance included in your packet to amend the zoning map, resolution vacating the existing drainage and utility easements, and then findings of fact and decision to approve the preliminary plat, final plat, and conditional use permit. Those actions subject to 14 stipulations as outlined.
Thank you. Council questions? Comments?
Mayor, if I could make a motion. Motion to adopt resolution 2024-67, vacating drainage and utility easements, adopt ordinance 2024-10, amending the zoning map and approving a preliminary plat and final plat, the Otsego Elementary Services, I'm the right one. Otsego Emergency Services addition and conditional use permit and site and building plans for Lot 1, Block 1, Otsego Emergency Services addition, subject to conditions stated on the findings of fact and decision as presented.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, seconded by Tina. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. Moving on to item 6.1 is our preliminary property tax levy. I will turn this over to our Assistant City Administrator.
Right. Thank you, Mayor. I don't have too many slides prepared for tonight, as this is the preliminary levy, and I am human resources, so I'm not as well versed in finances, unfortunately. But I just wanted to kind of go over briefly. So we've had 5 budget meetings so far, and what is presented tonight in front of council on the packet is what the meetings have moved forward to. This will be technically the 7th meeting on the preliminary tax levy. This is not approval of the budget. With the preliminary tax levy, there is until December to actually continue to decrease the tax rate and levy that is presented tonight. I just included one quick slide just to kind of show property taxes are very complicated, and I understand that. This is a very simplified version of how it works when it actually comes to tax rates and the market value. I did include a adjustment of market value after homestead exclusion. I didn't include the equation, but with the change that happened for this most recent year for the market rate or the homestead exclusion, it did include more homes that previously were not included into the exclusions. So this shows a rough estimate of what the median value home in Otsego would pay in city taxes. So the median value home for this year actually decreased from 2024 technically, or 2023 to 386,400. I'm just showing the city portion of the taxes. We do not have the county or school district numbers at this point, as they're also going through the preliminary tax levy at this point. These are estimates, as well as the tax capacity sets what that tax rate will be, and this is working off an estimate that the county has provided us. I tried to include some information just for what the tax rate history has been in Otsego, and to utilize kind of the previous slide showing kind of how the tax rate actually impacts what people pay in taxes. And then since we do have 3 school districts that are within city limits, depending on where you live in the city, you pay for different school district taxes. So not everyone in Otsego has the exact same tax rate. It depends on which school district you are living within. But kind of just to show the tax rate history within Otsego, 2020 was 35.099. And this year this is levy increase, not the actual tax rate increase, of at roughly 8% from 2024 to 2025. And like I said, this is preliminary, and so there can still be changes made till December. I wanted to show comparables just from 2024, as that's previously been shown. So even with the proposed 2025 tax rate, it is proposed to be lower than what St. Michael had for 2024. So currently in 2024, the tax rate in Otsego is 23.108. Like I said, I did not have a lot of slides prepared as we've met on this, and since this is not actually going over the budget itself, I did not want to go into details of line items, as that's not what is getting approved tonight. This is just the preliminary levy. So there is three different motions that are requested with this preliminary tax levy. The first one is to approve the debt service property tax levy, and then the actual preliminary property tax levy, and then also set it the truth in taxation, which is when the final levy would actually get reviewed in front of residents, and then also the budget would be getting reviewed as well at that evening. I will now turn to council for any questions or comments. I guess I will note, I know that at the last council meetings, there was a few items that we wanted to discuss further. So I have made notes of that for continuing forward for our finance director to be able to have information to be able to be prepared to provide options. So I do have those noted. I do not have those included with tonight, as we haven't had a discussion on them yet.
Council questions or comments?
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Ryan.
earlier tonight we heard, I know it was a long time ago, but we heard from Commissioner Holland, and she said that the county started out at an 8% levy increase, and they worked really hard. I think when she was here a couple weeks ago, she said they were going to try to get it down to 5%, maybe even 4%, and they ended up at 5.71. We started out at 8.29%, and we ended up at 8.29%. Not one single penny was taken out. Every single project was approved in full. And this budget shows two very important things. You heard it from this dais tonight, and you've heard it for years. that the increase in property taxes are the fault of the county, because the county is the one that's responsible for your property value. But last year, we actually reduced property taxes in the city, because even though your property values went up 26%, because we reduced the levy. This year, residents are going to experience the opposite phenomena. Their property values have gone down, but their property taxes are about to go up. That's because the city property taxes are the responsibility of the city and not the county. But the second item this budget also proves is we can't afford a fire department. Next year, the first payment on the lease will be due, but there's nothing in this budget to be able to pay for it. That's because we've been locked into a decision to only pay the interest on that lease and use the proceeds of the bond to make that payment. We are borrowing money and then using that money to make a payment on the money we borrowed. In other words, the fire department is not fully funded and we can't afford it. If this budget were honest about that expense, the tax levy increase would have been north of 27%. In 2026, residents are going to feel it. You heard earlier tonight that it's time to fund our public service. This budget is not doing that. Our fire department is not fully funded with this budget. We are quite literally kicking the can down the road. It's irresponsible and I'm not going to support it.
Sabrina, I have a question. To Mr. Dunlap's point about us paying interest only. Have we done this in other occasions with our funding for east and west?
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers up of what that cost would be, but typically, yes, bond payments are usually done in two portions. The first one is usually just interest, and then the second payment would be interest and principal. Bonds are usually structured differently than a mortgage, but they also kind of work under the same method as a mortgage, that there's only two payments during the year. Typically when there's an ongoing project and the actual expenses haven't been completely dispersed, it isn't uncommon to just be paying the interest at that point, as they don't have the funds fully dispersed and they don't actually have the final amortization schedule.
So like the West Sewer Plant, for example, $34 million.
Correct. With the current project that we have with the West Wastewater Treatment Facility, the project's roughly 34 million, but expenses are still getting dispersed with that actual financing. So we don't have a current payment. The first payment will likely be on interest, as the project is still ongoing. It will be for a couple more months, and then that will set the actual final payment amount that will be due.
Other questions or comments? And I will, Ryan, to your point, when you talked about the county, I did talk to Derek Fetch because we had the Wright County Mayor's Association meeting. And I asked him, you know, we had some numbers from Jeannie, and then he presented that same amount of moving it down to the 5.7 is what I have listed, correct, Jeannie? And I said, is there plans to do more then, or is that what you will most likely work off of? And his comment was, we worked really hard and that's most likely the number that we will present as preliminary, and that will be our final. And as you heard tonight, again, this is our preliminary. We still have time to go through it. There was many questions that we brought up during the budget meeting. We talked about COLA. We talked about other items that, as Sabrina mentioned, that we have not covered yet. So to say that we're done and this is our last number is not true. We still have until December to lower that number.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
here's why it is true. Because you can't increase it.
I understand we can't increase it. We can decrease it.
So this number, by voting on this number,
Mhm.
we are agreeing that we cannot afford the fire department payment for next year. We're not even making a payment. We're using the proceeds of the bond to make the payment.
Which we have done in the past. I'm just telling you that
We had no plan to do that with the City Hall project.
other council questions or comments. Again, we're up at the council, so I'm sorry, we can't take comments from the audience.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Brittany.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-68, adjusting the 2025 debt service property tax levy certified in the original bond resolution. I would also make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-69, adopting a preliminary property tax levy for taxes payable in 2025.
Second.
I'm gonna do them all. at one
No,
time.
Madam Mayor, I would request they be separate.
I would agree, they should
Okay.
be separate.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we'll start off. Motion to adopt resolution 2024-68, adjusting the 2025 debt service property tax levy certified in the original bond resolution.
Second.
Motion,
Motion by Brittany, seconded by Ryan. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-69, adopting a preliminary property tax levy for taxes payable in 2025.
Second.
Motion by Brittany, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
I will make a motion to set the truth in taxation public hearing for 5:30 p.m. on Monday, November 25th, 2024. The meeting will be held at the council chambers at 8899 Nashua Avenue, Northeast, Otsego, Minnesota, 55330.
Second.
Motion by Brittany, seconded by Ryan. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to item 7.1, Ryan, you had asked to move 3.12 to that item.
Yes, Madam Mayor, no issue with this. I just wanted to make sure there was a separate vote in case there were any council members that had a conflict of interest.
There is no conflict of interest.
City Attorney?
So someone could serve an election as an election judge if they're running in the election.
Sorry, to clarify, I have no issue if a council member is serving an election judge. I have an issue with a council member voting to increase, to take payment. That's a conflict of interest.
Oh, I see. So you're saying the payment is,
Gotta make that clear.
there's a conflict of interest because this council member will be paid the same as other election judges?
She's voting on her own. This council member is voting on her own employment.
I don't think that's a conflict of interest. She'll be paid the same as everyone else. I would say it's akin to like a special assessment project. If you're gonna be assessed similar to everyone else. I don't think that's a conflict of interest. I mean, if Councilmember Gady thinks it's a conflict of interest, she certainly could recuse herself.
Very well. With that, I will move to adopt resolution 2024-63, appointing election judges for the 2024 general election.
Second.
Motion by Ryan, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, we are now under city council reports and updates. We will go to heritage preservation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. HPC was obviously at Prairie Festival this past weekend, and they were there protecting their goods for the first two storms that rolled through. But that's really all. They had a great time.
Lots of people went to their booth.
Yes, they did. Their new laminated
Yeah, they
aerial
were good.
views were a hit.
Next item is Park and Rec Commission updates. Brittany.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Parks and Rec, we went on a tour. And we took a bus and went touring other neighboring communities and looked at their parks. Some of them have had park improvements. we were able to see a little bit just of what St. Michael and Rogers have. Again, getting just the feel for what their community asks for and what they're wanting and requesting in their parks. Also asking about how they finance things and where that money comes from because they're bigger projects. So it was a good overall. I thought it was really knowledgeable. It was very helpful to have other cities just provide feedback and be welcoming and help us kind of navigate what we're gonna do down the road. So otherwise, that's it. That's what I have.
Moving on to planning commission. At the last planning commission, it was a public hearing on the zoning and subdivision of the city-owned property for the fire station, which we had this evening. Next is public safety.
Public safety, the biggest discussion was that next meeting for public safety, October 8th at 6:30, we will be touring the 9/11 dispatch and sheriff's office. So looking forward to that.
Absolutely. All right, we are still under city council reports and updates. Does anyone have anything? Mine was that, as I said earlier, the Wright County Mayor's Association update. Jeannie gave a number a little bit lower, but they're anticipating a 5.7, which for homes around the 400 to 425, they anticipate it to be around $20 increase. The county is moving ahead with the compost site update and demoing the old building, is what Derek provided. We did get an update from the attorney on just kind of ongoing cases that he was able to share information on, along with an update from Sheriff Derringer at that meeting also. But we had 2 county commissioners present at that meeting, and 2 were in DC, as Jeannie Holland said earlier this evening. So also a reminder for the council, which Ron may cover it, but we have our meeting next Monday. Make sure your calendars are updated for that. 5:30. Okay, any other council reports and updates? One other plug to our staff that helped pull off a great Prairie Festival. As if you were home this weekend, Mother Nature really tried to mess with us. 2 storms wasn't on the radar back to back that they popped up, but everybody jumped in and covered stuff up to make it a great day. And by the end of the day, the sun was out and lots of people here, booths were busy. So I'm hoping that food trucks were successful, along with any of the vendors that were here, but also just a big plug for the tremendous amount that our staff puts towards making this a great day for our community. It's a long day, but really fun to see all the residents come out and get to see all the awesome things that Otsego has to offer. So I appreciate everyone that made it possible for Saturday. All right, we'll move on to staff reports and updates. Sabrina.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no updates tonight.
Okay, Audra.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to give a little election update. Absentee balloting started last Friday. And as of today, we've issued out over more than 800 ballots. So it's been really busy. And we are currently at over 15,000 registered voters in the city.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. And thank you for the long hours that you've been putting in.
We've had some great staff helping out. So thank you.
Okay. All right, Dave.
No updates, thank you.
All right, Dan.
Mayor, no update. The next possible planning commission meeting would be the second meeting in November. Because if we have one the first meeting in November, the city clerk would not be very pleased, so.
You might have a problem with that. All right, Ron.
Thank you, Mayor. Update on some projects. Freak Creek
Yes.
Park is almost complete. It's just the sport backstop that needs to be placed. The park is seeded and everything else is complete, so seed should be starting to grow here any day. Carrick Park improvement, that's well underway. 70th Street Trails extension completed by the developer there from Allen Avenue to Crossing Parkway. That's complete. We have 4 developments that are underway: the Meadows, Sockman Meadows, Tanglewood, and Anna Acres, and the raw water main from well number 11, which is located near the West Wastewater Treatment Facility, to pump house number 3. That happened last week. And that's nearing completion also.
Perfect, thank you. We did try to drive by Friedrich on our tour last week, but it was already dark, so it was too dark, so we couldn't see it, so. But we have heard from residents that were on that tour that live close there, that there were already people using it, so it's exciting. All right, Wright County.
Good evening.
Good evening.
No major updates for the city to give to you guys this month. Just a couple points to make. I said in the past about juvenile issues. Kids are back in school, so basically the numbers have switched from kind of around the streets of Otsego to increase of calls in schools. So juveniles. So, yeah.
School resource officers.
Correct. So another thing to point out, I just had the PSA for the citizens. If anybody has been following any police department, sheriff's office, agency within the state, they've probably seen a couple of the scam alerts. I just want to point that out. We have seen a few specifically in Otsego, and just it's really unfortunate. That's just how things are. The fraudsters from usually out of country keep changing how they do things. So don't open any suspicious emails. Take a second look at everything. If something does happen, call us. We'll try to figure it out for you. Another just something to mention, just on the sheriff's office in general. Fortunately, we have been fortunate enough to hire a decent amount of people so far. There's a class of 4 about a month and a half ago, 2 after that, and then 2 started this week. So it was nice that we could get 8 people hired to kind of restock our numbers, and that was after about 8 months of not being able to hire anyone. So
No applicants or
not being able to hire.
Okay. You can't say.
So we still have more potential applicants in the works. So we hope for our numbers up. So to provide the service you guys pay for. So any other questions, comments, other concerns for the city as of now?
Thank you for all you do.
Yes, thank you.
I'll be here.
And please pass
Thank
along to all of the additional people that came to help on Saturday at the festival. So
Good to see you.
Sorry.
It's good to
perfect.
see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, if we don't have anything else, then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tina, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you all for attending this evening.
Thank you.